What's up, everybody? Welcome to Case by Case. Welcome in. God, it's good to be home. I hope everybody is doing good. Good afternoon, everybody. Great Lakes Fungi. That email was just so heartfelt. You can't do that to me before I go live. You'll have me in tears. Good afternoon, everybody. Hit that like button and subscribe, please. This is the 16th episode of the Delphi Vault. Can you believe it? Still going strong. Today is going to be a quick introduction. I'm going to keep it short today because I have a lot of other research going on involved with the Delphi Vault and our upcoming new series about the trial rebuttal. This Thursday, if you haven't already noticed, I have a special guest joining me Thursday evening at 7. Skip Jansen will be here to talk witnesses. Him and I have been collaborating now for a couple of weeks and also while I was on vacation about certain things that we've been focusing on here in the Delphi Vault that were omitted in trial. And we're probably going to, some of it may be familiar to some of you, some of it may not be. For everybody who is new, especially I know I've gotten an influx of Karen Reed case followers. So grateful that some of you are now kind of switching gears now that your gal has been found innocent, even though the corruption ran deep in Massachusetts and they weren't able to succeed in pulling off the railroading that they were able to achieve in Delphi. So welcome to the Delphi case. And I think the whole community here in Delphi, all of us creators would love to have you all follow along, learn about the case. So we are going to, Thursday night, we're going to get into just a very small bookend part of the timeline that we've been focusing on here in the vault. And we're going to kind of deep dive and give you more of a background of why we feel this portion of the timeline destroys the state's case and why we are so shocked that it was not focused on. We know why it wasn't focused on by the state. We don't understand why it wasn't focused on by the defense. So today we're going to talk about the CAD report and what a CAD is. This is kind of a kind of easy topic for me because for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I used to dispatch and do 911 call taking, comm channel leads, that sort of. I worked in a large municipality radio room, and although since that time, technology's advanced, it's still very much the same as far as the overall general purpose of what a CAD report is generated for. So we're going to get into that. Quester is here. I'm going to bring him up. And we're not going to be deep diving the CAD report today. Yellow Jacket shared the CAD report for all of us on Twitter. So we appreciate that. It's redacted. So there are things about it that we don't have all the answers to. And that's fine. Keeping certain people's names out of the spotlight is not, we're still able to get an idea of what the information the dispatcher was receiving at the time that this initial incident report was generated for the 13th and the 14th. We're going to discuss a lot of information about the pings and the GPS and the information that was omitted from this CAD report. This CAD report is not, we're going to get into that. But let me bring Quester up. Hello. Hi, Quester.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everyone. Good to see you back. Good holiday?
Yeah, it was a good holiday. It was, this was the first time. I'm not going to say where we went because we go there every year, but it's one of my favorite places. And this was the first time that we went where we had a couple of cloudy days. So we did some other things besides poolside and beach. But when you're gone for that long, you know, the packing is extensive, and then you come home, and I've been overwhelmed with laundry, just trying to get things sorted because, you know, Mike went back to work today. I go back to work tomorrow. So yeah, coming home from vacation is the worst part about it, but it was a great 10 days. And I think next year, this year we stayed at a new place. We had stayed at the same condo for multiple years, and it was sold, and the new owners are not leasing it out anymore. So we had to switch condos, which we did, and we were very pleased. And I think next year we might go for 2 weeks. So I don't know. How was your last 10 days, Quester? I know that we've been going back and forth.
Interesting. Trying to work out through this CAD document what on earth was really going on.
Right. Right.
I'm absolutely at my wit's end with the defense attorneys, trying to work out why they didn't do things that, I don't know, a 4-year-old could see they should have done. But we are where we are.
We are. And seeing a lot of new names. Hi, Tom. How are ya? Tom, I'm not allowed 2 weeks. Well, we have a whole year. That's a year away. So just know that I am dedicated to dig down and follow this thing through. Like I said, I've got some things in the works that's going to be coming out beginning of September that I hope you guys will find exciting. And for those of you who are familiar with my coverage of Ashley Garth's case, we are still waiting. No news is good news, is what I keep telling her. We're still waiting for the Court of Appeals to respond to her post-conviction relief appeal. And I'm hopeful that the new evidence, because there was quite a bit of new evidence that was presented, will be enough to generate at least the case be remanded back to the state court, or something besides a denial. So we're waiting on that. And I'm dedicated to seeing the Vault episodes through. We've got some other things going on. So don't stress. But I am a firm believer that quality over quantity is what matters here in this case, which actually with any case. So I'm not so gung-ho about pumping out lives just to pump out lives. As you guys all know, every time we go live here, it is a jam-packed episode with the facts, the research, and the receipts. We show you where we're getting the information from. We show you how the research played out, and we're not always 100% accurate, and we admit that. And when we, again, if we are wrong, we will fix it. We will go on. And the one thing that I want to emphasize, and this was something that I believe Great Lakes Fungi picked up on, is the fact that we welcome input and bringing everybody into the fold, because you know, I've always said, this is our channel. This is our community. This is a fight for Abby and Libby and for Rick. I believe getting justice for Abby and Libby will ultimately bring justice for Rick. We are needing to build what's the word I'm looking for? We are looking to build a force to be reckoned with, as the state of Indiana needs to understand that we have a right to the civil process and the justice that every person who is charged with the crime is entitled to. And we have a right to demand that. And we have a right to demand that the people that walk around who have and bear the right to have authority over us as citizens, and this doesn't just apply to the state of Indiana, we have a right to demand from them that they walk the straight line. They don't get to do underhanded, shady things, and they don't get to force a guilty verdict on someone because they think they're guilty. We have laws for a reason, and we have the right to demand from them that those same laws apply to them. Just because they wear a badge, you know, they are not above the law. So anyway, off my hey streets, gonna come out there, and I need to buy a horse, and then I'm gonna come out there. So any questions? I know any questions about this? I don't even know what day it was that I did a live. I think it was maybe Friday morning. They would, oh my gosh, Great Lakes and streets. Okay, you're gonna get me. Yeah, I'll make it happen. Chester 22. No, we have not had the time to do that. Yeah, you should be streets. Never again. So do you guys have any questions about the live that I did on the Instagram stuff? That's not over with. We're still going to be working on that. I am still searching through the Jackson Pierce files to see if I can find any other correlation. So far, I know a lot of you have sent me some stuff, but none of it's been able to be significantly related to the images that were found in Libby's phone data. So let me take this off of here. No questions about that. Okay, are you guys let me just kind of go through, because you know I'm anal, about what a CAD report is. It's computer aided dispatch. And I think a lot of people think that this is kind of like a populated report that encompasses everything that goes on in a case, and that's not technically what this is about. What a CAD report is basically when a call comes into the radio room, and first of all, every radio room is going to be, yeah, I'm anal, Candy. I can't help it. So I am speaking based on my experience, and I know that every radio room is different. And I'm sure that the Delphi police station, I need to research how and where how they handled their radio system, as far as was it from Carroll County that covered all of Carroll County, or did they have their own specific radio room right there in Delphi? So see, like where I live, we have our major city has a radio room, and then all of our sub-cities, all of our subdivisions around the city all have their own. And I know some of them it's either done by city or it's done by county, and it depends. It depends on how their room is set up. I can only imagine that in Delphi, this is an unprecedented event that took place that day on February 13th, 2017. So typically the way that it works is when most smaller subsidiaries, you have a person answering 911 and dispatching all at the same time. That's not how it works in larger cities, simply because you've got different sectors, precincts, so to speak. So in Delphi, I would imagine that you had one person, maybe two, and I'm sure as the hours moved on through the 13th of the evening, there were going to be more people brought in to help manage what was taking place. So when the initial call came in from Mike Patty that the girls were missing, immediately it's put into the system and it generates an incident report. And from there, the dispatcher starts to input information. Now, it's usually done in kind of a shorthand format to where she's getting the basics in. She's not going into the full detail. You know, I'm like, they were dropped off at 1 o'clock at the trails. She didn't go in, you know, dispatcher's not going, and you see that in the CAD that she's not going into, well, the sister drove them there about this time. They were dropped off. Then she called her dad. You know, even though that information might have been relayed to the dispatch room, it's not going to go into the CAD. It's going to be a shorthand version. So how the CAD report is generated is it stands for a computer-aided dispatch used by the police departments to manage calls. The report documents incidents, includes times, locations, and the nature of the call. So when it says documents incidents, including time, every single time a dispatcher adds information to an incident report, that CAD system automatically timestamps it. The dispatcher doesn't have to do that. It's almost like a bookend, a beginning and an end. There are things that our system was called a trunk system. So every single time you hit enter, it's going to notate and timestamp automatically. It's not something the dispatcher is going to be responsible for looking at her watch and putting in the exact time. That's automatically generated. It includes details about responding officers and units dispatched to the scene. The report may contain notes on the status of the incident and any actions taken. That is going to be different with every single incident report that you ever see in the country. It's going to be up to the dispatcher what information goes in. And I'm going to tell you right now, what is going to determine what is put in is how well-versed and confident your dispatcher is. If your dispatcher is getting overwhelmed, the less information she's going to be able to put in. Or she's not going to recognize how pertinent certain things are and make sure that it gets added. The CAD reports are essential for record keeping and analysis of police activity. They can be used in investigations and for public transparency regarding police operations. Okay, so does anybody have any questions before I move on? And Quester, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I don't think so. The only thing I'd say is if there was one document that would be fairly reliable, I'd say it would be the CAD report, wouldn't you?
I would say yes. And I think here's the Tom, as of right now, if there was a retrial, more than likely the case would be kicked back to Judge Gall unless the defense was able to win a motion to have her removed. That is why we, as a community, we need to start a campaign to get her unseated in her upcoming election. So as far as the CAD report goes, again, this is different everywhere. And I think in Carroll County, it was a lot more laxed because I do know that we had police officers actually manning the phones and dispatch. They were in there helping. And why that is important is because they are law enforcement. For me, in the municipality that I worked in, our radio room was staffed with civilians. We were not covered under the FOP. So we were trained as civilians to cover our ass because anytime, for example, you have where I worked, code 3 was officer in trouble, or we had a shooting, or we had a breaking and entering in progress. everything, the investigation, everything starts in the radio room because that is where the incident is first reported. So as civilians, we had to make sure that we did everything by the SOP, our standard operating procedures, because we would be hung out to dry if we did something incorrectly or we omitted pertinent information off of an incident report. Now, that's the difference between having a radio room staffed by civilians, and it was, you know, it's much different everywhere you go, because I was a civilian, but I had a commanding officer, which was a lieutenant, who overseen the radio room. So there are things that we were not allowed to do as a dispatcher and a call taker. Prime example, we cannot, if let's say we have a 911 call that comes in where you have a female alone in the home and her house alarm is going off. We are not allowed to advise her to leave the position that she's in. We can't say, well, go downstairs and turn the alarm off, or have you, did you go downstairs to see if anyone has, broken a window? Because that we would be in trouble if that woman went down the stairs and was confronted by an intruder. So in Carroll County, it seems that you had law enforcement also manning dispatch and the phones. So they're not going to feel like they have to cover their own ass, so to speak, to put an overwhelming amount of information as the incident begins to unfold. And I think that's what I'm seeing when I look at this CAD report. And I feel too that whoever was operating in that radio room at the time started to become overwhelmed, because you start to see less and less information being put in. We're seeing gaps. We're seeing gaps in notations of the pings that they're reporting. So that's my take on it. It's just based off my experience. So if anybody else has their own experience, pop it in the chat. We can discuss it. But the CAD report, now what's been released by Yellow Jacket is, I'm sure, is only a small portion. And it pretty much covers the 13th and the 14th, but I'm sure this report is much longer. And you should see days, because the crime scene, the investigation in the crime scene, there's also going to be other aspects to this CAD report. Because, for example, any requests that are going out to other departments, there's a lot more going on that you're not seeing on this report. But it is documented. It's documented somewhere, whether it be audio recordings, phone call recordings, air transmissions, all of that is recorded. So this is just a very small, microscopic window into what the CAD report looks like on the 13th and 14th, but I can guarantee you there's a lot more that we've not seen yet. Anything else before I go on? Quester, you want to add in?
No, you're doing fine. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah, Heidi Lucas. Yeah, that would be up. I don't know in Indiana if the appellate court would come out on their own accord and say, you know what, based on everything that we see, we're going to interject our own opinion and we're going to move this case to a different judge. I don't know if they have the legal authority to do that, or if that's something that they would do without a motion to request it first. I'm not sure. So I have no idea, but that is a very good, that's a very good comment. So moving on. Again, a CAD report, the detailed information. Now the time stamping is automatically generated, but the CAD only logs what the dispatcher types. So names, details, you hear radio transmissions and her marking units coming and going and clearing themselves from, from one place to another. You're only going to get what the dispatcher types. If the dispatcher, we were focusing on the AT&T pings. Now, it's my understanding that law enforcement, and this could have changed, but and if someone in all eyes, maybe you have you're privy to this information somewhere along the lines in the case, but it is my understanding that law enforcement would need some type of search warrant to submit to AT&T to request that AT&T begin to ping the phone. There would have to be some substantial circumstances for AT&T to begin to do that. And so we know that the dispatcher didn't enter into this CAD report as an event that AT&T was requested to ping the phone. But what she does enter is an AT&T ping at 1800 hours, and that is the first sign that we see that we have a first ping result. the AT&T law enforcement portal record or phone call log, if this was called in, all of that would be documented on the AT&T portal record, which I've gone back through the list of exhibits and I don't see that an AT&T records report was ever entered as an exhibit. Does not mean it wasn't in discovery, but everything that we would like to see in this CAD report that we don't see may very well lie in that AT&T report that is generated after this whole report is complete, from the time that they were requested to begin to ping the phone up into the last ping. So this is what I'm showing you on the screen right now. It's a typical looking type of, and this is kind of like I don't want to say old school. This is kind of what your screen looks like as, I would say, a call taker, because like I said, in some parts of, in some radio rooms, your call taker is also your dispatcher. In other areas, you have a separate call taker and you have a separate dispatcher. Depends on how big of an area is annexed for your department. So as a call taker and or a dispatcher or both, typically when you open your screen, you both can see the same type of image. Everybody's CAD systems are different. So as a call taker, this first section here in the middle where it says call type, you've got your event description, all of that information is what a call taker would be putting in. Okay, then you hit enter and your incident report is generated. When you typically, if you're a call taker and you hit enter, it immediately sends this information to a dispatcher. If you're dealing with two different people in the room, you don't have to worry about that if the call taker and the dispatcher are the same. However, all of this information is usually divided up on two different screens. Here on the left-hand side of this image would be your incident, your call taking form. Over here on the right-hand side would be your dispatching. And then usually you would also have an area for your mapping. So when your cars are marking with you, telling you where they're going, where they're at, you immediately get a GPS location that the CAD report will will automatically populate into the CAD. And that's very important, mainly for the safety of the officer, because you want to know where your officers are at all time. If a banner goes off, a banner would be if an officer's in his vehicle or he's pulled someone over. You know, the radio that they have attached to their chest, there's a button on there. So if he walks up to a vehicle and the person in the vehicle pulls a gun, he doesn't even have to say anything. He hits his banner, and that banner is going to go off in the radio room, and you know that you have an officer in trouble. So their GPS location, first and foremost, is for the officer's safety. So we can tell by the CAD report that the very first ping that AT&T provided to law enforcement was at 18/12/47. And the ping that was sent, the coordinates goes right back to the Wells Tower. And we know that the dispatcher put this ping information in, so therefore we know that the request to AT&T had to have been made before this timestamp. And it takes anywhere from 1 to 10 minutes for the carrier to return the first location after a first live ping request is submitted, which means that this request to AT&T to begin to ping the phones started, the request came in between 6:02 p.m. and 6:10 p.m. So that's actually rather a quick turnaround time for law enforcement, that from the time the girls were reported missing to request to AT&T that the phone pinged, or to request for them to begin pinging the phone. Double checking chat. Tom, I haven't heard anything about the FBI in Florida. I know that they were there. Well, the first ping on the CAD, here, let me see. Let me pull this up. Go back to here. The first ping in the CAD is 6/12/47. But you can tell, you can tell that we were told that that AT&T were supposed to ping the phone every 15 minutes. And it's very likely that they did. But if you look over here in the right-hand column, these entries are from the CAD. This would have been manually put in by the dispatcher. And you can see on the right-hand side the time gaps. You've got 82 minutes, 91 minutes, 49 minutes. That doesn't mean that AT&T wasn't providing the dispatcher with an every 15-minute update as to the pinging of the phone. It was simply she wasn't possibly getting all of them in because he or she, whoever the dispatcher was, may have been overwhelmed with information coming in. And you know what, all eyes, and that's why today we're going over just a brief overview of this CAD report, because there's so much here that we have to research. And I haven't even gotten into all of the timestamps, and I don't think that Quester has either. I know he's gotten into some. However, that should never happen. Law enforcement should never be retyping a CAD report, period. It should come straight from the CAD, printed off, and handed over to the prosecutor via then into discovery. Do you see that? Do you see that comment by All Eyes Quester?
I do. I wasn't aware that Ellie had retyped it. If they have, that's a definite no-no. You don't play with things like that. It brings the whole CAD into question.
Oh, it's so frustrating. So here are the things that we're seeing. This is just some more detailed information about the CAD. The dispatcher calls the dispatcher or law enforcement. Usually it's some sort of a liaison who handles these types of things for law enforcement. They will contact the carrier and request, they're looking for the location of a phone. And the carrier will return with the report, sometimes verbally over the phone, sometimes as a PDF or a secure message. Typically, I would imagine that nowadays, this is probably another area in the radio room where another type of report is being generated. You would have someone, this is what I was familiar with, what we called it the comm channel. And comm channel is where, for example, if we needed AT&T to do something like this, whoever's working comm channel would be the one to make that request via phone call. And then comm channel would be the one getting the information back from AT&T and adding it to the incident. So the dispatcher didn't have to do it because they would be too busy occupied managing their maps, their cars, their vehicle locations, that sort of thing. So in a larger area, in a larger municipality, you have multi people doing doing different facets of the job. I can only imagine in Carroll County, you have 1 or 2 people in the radio room trying to do it all. So that is probably can get a little overwhelming. The dispatcher types a summary into the CAD, like ping hit on the Wells Tower, and the same location hit. CAD entries are meant to be operational notes, not forensic storage. So the accuracy radius, the tower ID, the sector ID, and method are often useless or often left off unless the dispatcher decides to type them in. And we're going to get into that. And why the CAD rarely contains the full technical ping data. A CAD is not a forensic data system. It's an active incident log. Most dispatchers just enter the coordinates in the tower name because that's all the search teams immediately need. The full ping record with uncertainty meters, tower sector, etc., is usually kept in the carrier's ping return PDF or portal record. That is what that's what I'm looking for that I don't see in the exhibits. That would have been in discovery. And let me take this down here. And let's talk about why that is so important. Let me get this off my screen real quick. So we know that, prime example, Ron Logan's search warrant. We have his phone location and the coordinates of his phone, and they are able to tell us within meters, yards, where his phone was in the proximity of. We know that he was out by the bridge, and we know that twice his phone pinged near the crime scene. So we know that at this particular time, they had that capability. What is the one thing that we were told on the night of the 13th? The phone was pinging all over town. How did they know that? Is that because AT&T was providing them with the information? I choose to believe they were. I choose to believe that the phone, they were getting proximity locations and this is just hypothetical. This is just, my theory on information that they could have been receiving. The phone's over here by the Pizza King, or the phone is over here by the sandwich shop, or the phone is over there by City Park. They were saying the phone was pinging all over town. Then what comes next? They cancel the dogs. Then they call off the search. Is that because they felt the girls were just out running around Delphi and they weren't really in danger, so they weren't going to take this that serious? And it wasn't until Becky said that AT&T told her they could not ping the phone. So regardless of the fact, we have pings and we have coordinates. What we don't have is proximity locations. But I firmly believe, and it's my opinion only, that they knew within a proximity of where that phone was. I believe that's why they called off the dogs. I believe that's why they called off the search, because they didn't feel the girls were in imminent danger. And that is when the snowball effect of, oh my God, we fucked up, when the girls' bodies were found the next day. And then they started backpedaling on, well, the phone wasn't ping, we didn't know where the phone was. We know for a fact that Libby's GPS was on when she left the Patties. We have GPS coordinates from the Patties' home to the Mears Trail. Her GPS was on. We have no record of her phone ever being put in airplane mode. So why would they have not been able to retrieve any type of proximity location? And if that phone was hitting off the same tower, we should have a detailed map that, like a geofence around that Wells Tower, as to proximity wise where that phone was pinging in around that one Wells Tower. Yes, that's what they stated after the fact. There was no contact with the phone since then. My interpretation of the info received thus far indicates that the cell phone is either no longer in the area or no longer in working condition. Well, we know that's not true now. And we know that based on this CAD report right here, that phone was pinging all evening long. Now, Quester, do you want to talk about your concerns as far as, let me see here, pull this back up. Oh, no. Do you want to talk about your concerns about what you're seeing in the gaps around the 4:30 a.m. mark?
The 4:30 a.m. on the 14th. Yeah.
Yes.
My concern is, according to the experts in the trial, let's just get the data up. So the phone they found was used at 2:14 a.m. There was nothing else on the phone, according to them, until 5:39 when it pinged. Now, that's a massive time in between. And as you rightly said, the 0433 event is right smack in the middle. Now, they led us to believe that the phone was off throughout that period, didn't they? However,
that's what they said.
This CAD shows that it was pinging during that time, all the way through. It even pinged at 0433, which is at the time when we know the phone was turned on. So the question has to be, why did the experts want us to believe that this was a dead time between 2:15 and 5:30? One might say, yes, the experts weren't given the CAD details, but the state were, and the state have a duty to tell the truth, don't they?
They do.
Yep. Yet they allowed the trial to believe that the phone was off all that time when it was not. Okay, so they misled that. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Well, that and the fact that they, then when you see in the forensic data that the phone was at 4% all night long, and that phone survived the whole entire evening. And then when you see the fact that we know that this phone is pinging, let's see here. Let's look at all these pings again. Deanna Burdett, no. Yeah, I haven't gotten those, but I would like to have them. Thank you. Let me see here. Let me pull this back up. So right here, we have all of these pings throughout the evening. You've got 3:59, then you've got 4:33, 4:51, 5:08, 5:25, 5:41. And they want to, and there is, and I didn't include it, and I've still got to research it some more. I do know that if the phone's GPS was turned off, that every time they pinged the phone, we would get the same exact coordinates as the ping before. So the fact that early on in the evening, they said the phone was pinging all over town. That's a very accurate statement. He didn't come forward and say, we're trying to locate the phone. We've got AT&T attempting to ping the phone so we can get, some sort of a proximity of where the phone is. That's not what he said. He came out and he said, the phone is pinging all over town. And at some point in time, you have to draw the line in the sand and say, look, dude, all of you, you all need to start being held accountable for the words that come out of your mouth. You don't get to tell us the phone was pinging all over town, and then a month later pretend that you don't know what we're talking about and why we would ever, start a conspiracy theory as such a thing when it came from you. It's this repeated bullshit in this case over and over and over again. They tell us one thing, we believe them, and then they turn around and they slap us in the face with the pack of stupid, like we're the problem because we relied on their information. And I know that's exactly how the defense team felt when it came to the Odinist theory. Same thing applies. What do the coordinates mean when they are all the same? Well, it means that the phone is what they provided in the CAD report, which I'm not saying that the dispatcher who was in charge of putting information into the CAD, that anything nefarious was going on. It was that she was simply updating the pings by adding the coordinates. All of the coordinates came back to the Wells Street tower. So all eyes, I don't know what you're saying with that. D1 sent AT&T ping to ISP at 9:30 p.m. Contact AT&T. Well, I don't know if that was information that was added by a different officer, because the right, you said the historical data. Like I explained, when you have an incident open in a radio room, and you have other people in the room who have access to that incident, information could be added at different times. So we know, I don't believe that Delphi law enforcement had the ability on their own accord to ping a phone. We do have timestamps of the pings occurring at 6:12:47 to the Wells Tower. So that means somebody had the capability of pinging the phone. And I believe at that time it had to be AT&T. So if somebody input the information about when AT&T had been requested, they may not have put that in the CAD until 9-something p.m. But then again, when you're talking about they came in and they retyped the CAD, that then opens the door to, once again, we can't rely on the information. Quester?
Yes. Yeah, once it's been retyped, it is open to person interpretation. That's putting a polite and innocent look on it. But you cannot then accept anything in it until you've seen the original. It's just unbelievable.
All eyes, when you say the CAD report has been backfilled, what do you mean by backfilled? And while I'm waiting on her response, Quester, I know that you are still trying to locate that information, and I've had several people ask me about the let me see here, I might be able to pull this up. Ask me about the tower across the street from Ron Logan's property. Can you just briefly?
I'm still trying to find the information. It was information that I stumbled on back in early 2018. Yes, there is a tower just north of Ron Logan's, and it's got an incredibly curious history. For instance, it ceased to be being used before it was built, according to the records. It's been used by several people, including government agencies, but it won't say who owns it. There's no record at the moment of who is running it either, if it is being run. So it's a very curious beast. If anyone's got any information on exactly what's happening with it, I'm all ears.
I'm going to pull up, let me see if I can pull up the Google map. So we do know, let me see here. So we do know that there is a radius around a tower, a cell phone tower. And there is we have a curious ping that I did some research on from Libby's phone, that from the time that they left the Patty's home until they arrived at the trails. At some point, Libby's phone pinged on a tower in Florida. And when you do the research on it, it comes back that there's no clarification as to how that could have happened, because she's well out of radius of the Florida tower. And sometimes you get, for example, if you have a tower, the normal tower within your area, if that tower is congested, you might get kicked to another tower. However, it's highly unlikely that that is the case with this Wells Street tower based on the population in the city of Delphi. It's not a tower that's going to be congested to the point where you're going to be rerouted to a different tower. So we do know that her GPS was on her phone. It was working. How we go from basically we're being told they didn't know where the phone was. That's what we're being told. But I guarantee you, if we had this AT&T report, AT&T was able to depict a proximity of where that phone was at each ping. And to double down on my opinion on that, if that phone, if AT&T was providing a proximity of location, just like we got with the Ron Logan phone in his search warrant, why didn't the state present that report at trial to show this phone did not budge during this 30 to 40 number of pings that were attempted on this phone? Where is that report? I'm trying to pull this Google Earth up here. Hang on, guys, my computer is. Where am I at? Trying to pull up my Google Earth with my all of my little pin notes of where everything is. And that tower across the street from Ron Logan's is like literally directly across the street. And I would be curious to know. Now, Quester, did you say that tower, that you said that cell phone tower was not active in 2017? Is that the information that you have?
Yes and no. There seems to be two stories running alongside. One of them is that it was deactivated long before 2017. And the other one is it was very much active in 2017. The history behind it is so bizarre.
That's right, Charlie Murphy. And that's one thing that we've emphasized here a lot, is that these coordinates are the location of the phone. And the phone could have been moving around, but that doesn't mean the phone was with the girls. We've always said that. Yeah, well, I'm not a pro at Google Earth, but I do have, and I don't know why it's giving me fits right now. Every time I do a live, I've got so many windows open. It's like, what? Let me see here. Delphi. It may not let me. I may have had to have preloaded it before I got on here. Because I
I
had
just sent on
everything on
Messenger
here.
to you, Amy.
Okay.
Might help you what I've sent on Messenger.
Okay. I'm looking. Bear with me, guys. All right, I've got to let these things reload. That's a good theory, B. Jones. Is this is that the cell tower across the street from Logan's that you sent me?
It is, yes.
Okay. I'm going to have to preload this next time so we don't have to wait. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it anymore. Next time we go over this, I'll be able to preload it with all of the pin markings on there because I have it. I have the Wells Tower. I have everything mapped out on Google Earth where everything is, you know, with times, Muddy Bloody Guy, the tower across the street from Logan's, yada, yada, yada. So anything else you want to talk about as far as the CAD report, all eyes, anything that you want me to bring up about the CAD report? Because we just simply today just brushed over what it is, how it's generated, and the information that's input and where that information comes from. What we plan on doing is attempt to dissect what we can see versus what the expert reports show. And do you want to touch on that really quick, Quester? Because I know that you were seeing some serious discrepancies in between the CAD report and the experts' reports.
Where to start? Honestly, don't know where to start without getting in really deep on that. And it's going to go off into side tracks. And if we get into that, we could be here for a long, long time. So perhaps you might want to hold on till the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That way we have, because I don't want to rush through this. And, you know, I've been trying to compile all of this information, and compiling it is a task in itself versus deciphering it and then making sure that, you know, there's so many different areas in this case that they all affect each other, but they all say something a little bit different. And it's kind of like you have to dig through the weeds.
Yeah. Well, as you know, there's one massive thing in there, which we definitely will be discussing in the next one, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. And somebody asked me, what was the question here? What's the difference between a CAD and the Crime Star? I think the Crime Star is a newer version. It's kind of an upgraded version of a CAD system that I'm guessing that it compiles all of the data entered by different facets of an incident report. So like I tried to, it's kind of complex to explain, and it's different with every department and how they operate in their radio room. You know, and the terminology is different. For example, when I hear in the audio transcripts, the audio transmissions from law enforcement, where I hear a dispatcher directing an officer to go to a different channel, I would call that a back channel. That still, so you've got, and that's mainly so officers are not tying up the main air. You're not going to have an officer come on and request, for example, a wrecker for an accident scene on the main air. That's not what the main air is used for. The main air is for dispatching. We have an incident here. This is what it's coded. And then they assign their available officers, or an officer marks on the air that they're available and that they're going to be en route. That's what the main air is for. So when a dispatcher tells officers to go to a different channel, these conversations are taking place here. That channel is still a part of this incident. So I believe what Crime Star has done, it now takes an all-encompassed approach to incorporating all of this into one massive CAD report. And I just don't believe that Delphi back in 2017, and they probably don't to this day, have that kind of capability, because the price for a system like that is just not, it's not cost effective for a small county to need it, because this, like I said, this was an unprecedented event. It's not necessary. I believe that would be the difference between the CAD and the Crime Star. And the busier the department, the larger the radio room, the more need for a more advanced system to eliminate all of these gaps that we see of information. And I just can't, I can't emphasize it enough that a CAD report should never, ever be retyped. And whenever you, okay, for example, let's say you had an incident. Let's say there was a fight between two neighbors and someone calls 911. You know, this would be classified when I dispatched as a disturbance, which would be a 1016. And we would send, it would be a 2-officer run. Officers go out there, and people are arrested over this fight, and they're taken to jail. The officer takes them down, books them, and then he clears himself from the incident. That run then initially is closed out, and it's archived. You know, it stays in the system. So let's say a day later, a neighbor calls in who was a witness to that particular incident, and they want to provide information that they weren't able to provide on scene to the officer, because, you know, let's say the officers were breaking up a fight, they were handcuffing people, getting them into the car, so they didn't have the opportunity to give the officers their witness statement. So they call back in. As a dispatcher in the CAD system, you have the ability to put the address back into the system, reopen that incident, and you're going to update. But when you update it, the CAD system automatically depicts what's happening. The incident was closed out. We had additional information come in. It is time-stamped. My tech number would go in, and I would be required to explain adding additional information after the incident was closed by a neighbor, and then I would proceed to add it. All of that should be documented in a CAD report. Just because the incident was closed, you still can go back in and add it. But the system itself, let's say I went back in and I deleted something, the system would show that. So that is why it's important. This is what I would consider a hard record. A CAD report is a hard record. It should never be tampered with. And once the information is put in and it's time-stamped, that's it. It's on record. It's done. You don't get to go back and change the record. That is no different than somebody testifying in court, and the court reporter is transcribing what this person is saying. And then when that court reporter goes back to transcribe the entire trial, they change what the person said on the stand. That should never be allowed to happen. And that's why you have backups. For example, you've got the CAD system who should document emphatically what's transpiring on that incident minute by minute and who's accessing it, timestamp, identification. I mean, when you log into your system at your station, every time you touch that incident, the CAD system should record who's touching it. Just like in trial, your recorded testimony in a courtroom is your backup to the transcripts. You know what the person said because it was audio recorded. So if there's indications that this CAD report was rewritten, retyped, that's a problem. And this just contributes to, once again, another nefarious thing in this case that makes absolutely no sense. And you can no longer chalk it up to incompetency and, oh, well, we don't have the full report. No, somebody was doing shit behind the scenes after the fact to cover their ass. I'm going to check in chat really quick. Fire chief said he. There it is, right there. Fire chief said he met with sheriff and police chief. They agreed the area had been searched enough to determine the girls were elsewhere. That is why they decided the safety risk wasn't worth it. Now, you back that up with AT&T giving proximity locations, AKA law enforcement stating the phone is pinging all over town. Let's cancel the dogs. Let's call off the search. And then they realize days and weeks down the road, they have to backpedal. Where's the AT&T report? May I objectively apologize here, late to the live chat. Hi, Michael. So do we have any questions about any of that? I just feel today I wanted to discuss just, the best way that I could how a CAD report is generated. And I also wanted to point out that, the dispatcher or the person who was in charge on the 13th in into the late hours of the 14th could have very well changed hands. There could have been somebody else who came in on B company who worked second shift, who took over. I don't believe that that person, who was probably more than likely overwhelmed with the amount of activity, air transmission, different departments marking in and out of the area to offer assistance. And you've got the fire department now probably utilizing different back channels. I'm sure it was overwhelming. And I don't believe that the dispatcher would be anyone to point the finger at. It's, you know, it's acceptable that there are going to be gaps in this information. What's not acceptable is once all of the information is compiled, what's missing that we still don't know. And Charlie Murphy made a great point that if the phone was moving, it doesn't mean that the girls were moving. Quester, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, to back up what you said, on the CAD, you can see at about 1820, another dispatcher joined in. Up until that point, it had been dispatcher number 01192. At 1820, we get 01190 appearing. Then you start getting 90 and 92 overlapping. So yeah, exactly as you said, they called in someone else to help.
Right.
Between 1820, 1827, that sort of time, they were operating too.
And that's typical. I mean, it's very typical that they would do that. And again, I'm sure there's a lot more to this report than what we've seen or we will probably ever see unless there's, you know, a new trial. Hey, Radar. Yeah, there is a lot going on down there in Delphi. There's people switching jobs, all the scrambling, all the mixing up. But what we do know is that Jerry Holman got the blue ribbon for the Pig of the Year. That's a great update that I shared on the community post. So if we could track down, I mean, we won't know as far as discovery goes if that AT&T report was in discovery. I just wish the defense would have put more eyes on this timeline than what they did. And I was, you know, very, very frustrated listening to Andy's interview with Bob Mata, simply because I do not see anywhere in this trial where the timeline was attacked. And we do know that in opening arguments, we were told we would hear from Daniel Pearson. And in the interview, when they're talking about Betsy Blair's witness account that she saw a young guy on the bridge and then reportedly turned around and began walking back to continue her third loop, she claims that she passed the girls. And Andrew Baldwin stated in his interview, yeah, who was that guy? I mean, he couldn't even say the name. He couldn't even say, we believe that Betsy Blair saw Daniel Pearson. And I don't understand why. I don't understand, you know, and Osbrook, since you're here, I want to ask you this. Are you aware so Baldwin in opening statements promised that we would hear from Daniel Pearson. Are you aware of this? Did the state have the ability to block that subpoena? Yes, Trial Junkie Derek did search there. Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Just one little point. You were saying that the defense didn't attack the timeline. There
Correct.
was a golden torpedo sitting right in front of their face. The UPS driver. Now, he told us that, well, he didn't say it in trial because they didn't call him, but he told us that he went to the harvest store at 1 o'clock. We are then told that he's on the harvest store cam at 6 minutes past 1. That makes a 6-minute discrepancy, not 54 minutes like the state said. Now, surely the defense could have made some meat out of that.
Well, we didn't hear anything about the UPS driver at trial.
No, we didn't.
No.
Wonder why.
Right. Michael, I'm talking about the reason that Baldwin did not call Daniel Pearson. I've been asked, and I didn't know the answer to this. That's why I'm asking you. Did the state have the ability to block the defense from issuing a subpoena for Daniel Pearson? Are you aware of what the defining factors were? Was it simply that the defense didn't call Daniel Pearson, or did the state have something to do with blocking him being called? I've been asked that question and I don't know the answer. Osbrook says no. Okay. So it was the defense made the decision to not put Daniel Pearson on the stand. And we're going to discuss Daniel Pearson on Thursday with Skip Jensen. Michael said they just didn't call him. Okay. So another thing, going kind of looking down the pipeline here, as we continue to decipher the pings and the CAD. Obviously, the one major thing that jumps out is the 4 girls that in the CAD are tipped in. We do not know who tipped this tip. We don't know who made this tip. It's redacted, and I am being told that it is not Betsy Blair who made this tip, somebody else. And we've got now another group of 4 girls playing on the Hoosier Heartland underneath the bridge. And are we to believe that this is a whole nother set of 4 girls? We know that Rick Allen claimed to have seen 3, and we know who those 3 are, and we know that they were there on the trails that day. Out of their own mouths, they were there. So who is this group of 4? We need to pin down, is it a possible witness mistake that she saw 4? Could it have been 3? Is this a separate 4 group of girls, different than the 4 girls that were aware who took the photograph on the bench at 126? This caller claimed that it was approximately 1 o'clock that she's seen these people. Even if you give this caller the benefit of the doubt of a 30-minute window, 12:45 to 1:15, that's a pretty big fluctuation of a time. And even if you give this person who tipped this in the benefit of the doubt, it really throws a wrench in the other 4 girls' timeline. And where is this witness, and who are these 4 girls? Are 3 of these girls the 3 that we know were already out there? Or are these a completely different set of 4 girls? And why was this not a bombshell at trial? Quester?
Yes, it's strange, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, those girls would have been at the trailhead about the time that Richard Allen says he was there. Were they the girls that he saw? It should have been important to find out who those girls were.
And I don't, I'm curious as to what, like, the witness claimed that the one girl sat down in the middle of the road and the other girls came over and picked her up. Like, they were out there goofing around. And, all of these people, I mean, we are now in an upwards of 10 to 12 people on the trails the same time that the original 4 girls, the Wilbur group, claims to have seen this man that they think is Bridge Guy. Compile that with the Lieberts reporting that they saw a man completely on the other end of the trails, on the private drive, beyond the south end of the bridge, with a face covering. So, and what really irks me the most about this case, and how you, and this is just me speculating, okay? We have multiple instances where we have things that are reported that have been left out of the spotlight. One being the Lieberts reporting that there was a man with a face covering. But then what is put in the spotlight is the 4 girls reporting at the start of the trails by Freedom Bridge, a man with a face covering. It falls into the same category of the white van that was not, it was discussed, it moved around through all of the social media groups, throughout all of the different creators channels, but it was never spotlighted as being a real focus of, could this really been a part of this crime? Not until then. You've got Rick Allen talking about a white van. You've got Reese Davis in 2017 talking about a box cutter. That was hidden. And then all of a sudden, you've got the pathologist taking the stand, the coroner taking the stand, who did the autopsies, claiming, oh, it could have been done by a box cutter. It's almost like the state took all of these little attributes throughout this case and said, we know for a fact that the Lieberts said that they saw a man with a face covering, but yet that doesn't help our timeline. That doesn't make Rick Allen the guy. You've got Sarah Carball being interviewed twice. The first time, he's muddy 11 times. The second time, he's muddy 13 times. And then finally, we get to her third interview. We're now, I think it's almost 2 years later, where now all of a sudden he's just muddy, bloody, and he looked like he slaughtered a pig. It is almost like these witnesses were prepped, fed information, to the point that they took factual things throughout this case that didn't suit their narrative, but they made them part of their narrative. Like they were piecemealing these little tiny details out of factual portions of this case that they tried to hide from us. Do you understand what I'm saying, or am I making it too complex, Quester? Are you still there? I am firmly convinced that Bridge Guy did not enter the trails from Freedom Bridge. I don't believe that he did. There's too many people. Go ahead.
Sorry. In regard to the white van, we don't actually have any real hard evidence that Richard Allen said that.
No, we don't.
What we do have, we know that Waller was frequenting lots of social media at a time when white van was being discussed. We also know that Wala was recording, taping and audio all her meetings with Richard Allen. We also know Wala said that she didn't tape or record the one meeting in which she says Richard Allen mentioned a van. Not a white van, a van. That is all we've got on that.
And that's a key point. That's a key point because Walla never said that Rick Allen said a white van. It was just a van. Like,
yep.
All these seepages of little, all of these seepages of little information, I feel it was woven throughout this case by the state. They took pieces of information that they had and they plucked them in to certain aspects to make it real. And if you follow this case from beginning to end, you see it throughout. You've got, that be a gun. You've got the gun cocking, supposedly in the video, that I've never heard. And then you realize that she didn't say that be a gun. But yet this bullet was never ever mentioned in the search warrant for Ron Logan's property. But now it becomes this emphatically massive part of the case, and it's the one forensic piece of evidence that they've used to tie to Rick Allen. And I still want to know how this bridge guy pulls a gun, racks it, pops the bullet out, and then this bullet grows wings and flies over the creek and lands 6 inches from Libby's foot on the other side of the creek at the crime scene. If he's racking the gun to intimidate the girls at the south end of the bridge, and that bullet pops out, how does it get to the other side of the creek at the crime scene? I just feel like this case is so corrupted beyond anything we've ever seen before, that to me it all makes sense what they were doing. Okay, I'm just checking up on chat. All I said, school superintendent sent out emails to parents in other counties on February 14th about a creeper man in a white van approaching kids with candy. There's one. That's one incident. You're welcome.
The problem is, I dare say 90% of vans in just about every country are white.
Well, there's just so many different, there's so many different rabbit holes of information that in a case like this, if you've got the goods, show the goods. They have played hide the ball from day one. And as more information begins to trickle out, and I mean, I don't even know at this point how long it's going to be before we ever get our hands on all of the exhibits that we're entitled to. And there's a reason for that. There's an absolute, Charlie Murphy, I agree. Walla was a plant by the state. Absolutely. They were controlling the strings with him every step of the way. They needed these confessions. And there's multiple people who refuse to speak out of fear, who have shared information about them getting threatened in the prison, the suicide companions being told to mentally torment Rick, harass him, threaten him. And if they didn't do what they were told, these suicide companions, that they would have privileges taken away, they would not get their commissary, they would have their tablets removed from their cells. There are so many things that has transpired in this case. It's all lopsided now. And anybody who doesn't see that has their blinders on. And for all of those Facebook groups who are still out there who are attacking anybody who thinks that Rick Allen is innocent, the guy's in prison for 133 years or 130 years right now. Shut your pages down. Move on. Why do you still have your pages up? There's a reason. Well, Trial Junkie, it is possible the state could do anything with. It's possible the prosecutor's office. That was the whole purpose in starting the post-conviction relief investigation now, was to basically preserve the discovery, because we don't know what they're capable of.
Well, we know they're capable of destroying evidence. They did that right at the start with all the interviews, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, that was an accident, wasn't it?
All of it was an accident. It was,
somebody left the light on. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, like the warden, when they were trying to get Rick removed out of Westville, and the warden got up there and bold-faced lied under oath about the video camera not having sound. They were not only videotaping this man, every move he made outside of his cell, they were also videotaping and audio recording his meetings with his attorneys. And Judge Gall just sits there and acts like, oh, well, that doesn't bother her at all. But we're going to take a break right here in the middle of trial, and we're going to send you guys back to remove the audio from all of these videotapes that weren't supposed to have audio. It's just the mountain of bullshit in this case is unreal. Looking. Sorry, what's wrong? What am I missing about Simon here? Radar says the state didn't even prove that the man on the Monon High Bridge committed a crime. Why would LG turn off video at that point? Why did Bree text Liberty German but not Kelsey German, or did she? KG was there. Bree could have left with KG. What the hell? Yeah. And to double down on that, Abby and Libby, when Libby came off that bridge, when Abby came off the bridge, why did Libby linger there? Why was she lingering at the end of the bridge? If she turned on the video camera because she felt uneasy about the man approaching Abby from behind, when Abby came off the bridge, Abby came off in somewhat of a menial sprint and went past Libby. They could have both kept going straight and went right over to Weber's property. I'm sorry, but when you're in a situation like that and your heart is pounding and you're in fear, you're going to go to the first safest place, or to a place where there's going to be other human beings around to help you. Libby lingered. Abby passes her, and then Abby comes back towards her. You have to ask yourself why. If the undertone that law enforcement gave us all about this video, and the reason they couldn't share this 43-second video all these years is because it was so scary. Why didn't the girls run? Why didn't they keep going? There's really only, in my opinion, only two reasons. One, they weren't paying attention to him. They weren't afraid of him. They were preoccupied with whatever their plans were going to be. Or somebody was on that south end of the bridge and they were pinned. That stopped them from going. Why would Abby run off the bridge like that? Maybe excited that, you know, whew, I made it across. That was scary. But then she comes back. Was her path cut off? Were they really kind of like pinned in? That to me is the only two plausible explanations.
Well, there is another curveball there, Amy.
Do what?
If you listen to the tape, the first people to mention going down the hill was not BG. It was the girls.
Correct.
So they were talking about going down there before he even started talking. Nothing says that they were under any kind of threat or believed themselves to be under any kind of threat.
Correct. And so the interesting thing about when you say pre-planned or, you know, I know that Julie Melvin has stated that, you know, she's spoken to several of Libby's friends, and that they all said the girls had been trying to get other people to go out there with them that day. This was a game plan the girls had, was to go out to the trails. Reese's supposed to call me. He messaged me the other day and said he wanted to call me. I was actually on my way back from vacation, and I don't know what his girlfriend has advised him to do. So I really can't comment on that. But one thing that's interesting, and this is why I took the time to address it while I was on vacation, was the Instagram photo that is in the phone data at 144, which was in Libby's phone data, but it was not a photo that Libby uploaded. So I put together a little page here of information on Instagram and kind of how Instagram works. And it gives you a lot of different, I'll post this in my Facebook group, but it gives you a lot of different, you know, application information about Instagram and how you cannot open up the Instagram app and download a photo from your newsfeed. You have to screenshot it, or you have to use a third-party application to allow you to download a photo from Instagram. The only way that you can save or download directly from Instagram is if you are sent a direct message and a photo is sent in that direct message. But overall, I'm not going to read this whole document, but overall, when you see an app, so I'll read this bottom portion. The fact that an Instagram app was accessed and then a photo appears in the forensic extraction suggests that the photo was likely interacted with within the app, resulting in its storage within the Instagram's app data on the device. So that could have merely been Libby opening up the Instagram app, scrolling through her news feed, stopping on this photograph and liking it. Or this photograph could have been sent to her in a direct message. I'm not technically savvy on the phone data enough to know if the phone data would indicate, prior to it showing Libby accessed the Instagram app, if there would be an event that showed she was sent a direct message by Instagram, which then prompted her to open the app. I don't know if that information would be listed as an event in the phone data. But what is interesting is that it makes sense. I mean, we don't have to blow everything out of proportion, but it makes sense that if Libby is on her way to the trails, that she sees somebody posting pictures from the trails and she liked it. Or was this some sort of a subliminal message? Like, we're here, I'm here, and there is no doubt in my mind that, let me go back to it. This photograph right here is the photograph that Osbrook seen in the phone data after Libby accessed the Instagram app. This photo over here on the right-hand side there's no doubt in my mind that this photo was taken by the same person at the same time, just a different shot. And you can see that this is the Monon High Bridge because you can see in the shadows in the water, the bridge supports. I should have put a side-by-side of these two photos. These are the two photos right here, side by side. I do have them. The photo on the left is the photo in LG's phone data. The photo on the right is a cropped photo from the Jackson Pierce files video. This one over here on the left looks like it's more zoomed in. This one over here on the right looks like it could have been uploaded with more of a filter, like a lighter filter, but this is the same location, the same area. If you zoom in, which you can't do it on this PowerPoint, but if you zoom in, the photograph here on the left is zoomed in much more. This one over here is probably the accurate distance without zooming in. But if you zoom in on this one, if you screenshot it from the video, you see the trees are the same trees along this creek bed here, along the water's edge. Same bush here on the left-hand side. What are the odds of that? And then you've got, let me see where I put it. When you, oh, I thought I put it in here. Yes, guys.
Can I go on a walk with Siri at your
And her dad? Yeah. Oh, I thought I put it in here, but I guess I didn't. Let me see if I can pull it in here right now.
You could see from those photographs that they were taken probably between 15 and 30 minutes apart, judging by the shadow movement. So,
and I ran it through. I ran it through a couple of programs, and based on the sun and the shadows, it stated that it was more than that. If the camera was facing east and the sun was behind them, those photos would have. Well, the first one, I didn't do the second one. I only can admit to doing the one that Michael found, which is this one. Is that it would be between 4 and 6 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, according to Jackson Pierce, these photos were uploaded on on a Google account. There's 41 photos, and they were uploaded, I believe, on February 14th. Which that in itself is, it kind of throws a wrench into it, because if this photo was taken on the 13th, this was taken well after the girls had been abducted, if it's between 4 and 6 p.m. But what it doesn't eliminate is the fact that somebody could possibly have been out there frequenting the trails, taking photographs on different days, and then just at 11 something in the afternoon decided to upload it to their Instagram on the day that Libby is in the car on her way to the trails. And why, and here's the really conundrum. Why do we have this Jackson Pierce finding these photos years ago and feeling they had some sort of a connection? And then when we get access to the phone data, lo and behold, there is a photo that has imprinted into Libby's phone data from that gallery of photos that were uploaded. And then you've got these two, Krista Burris and Emily Collier, reportedly both out there on the trails. Krista Burris, I cannot pin down that she was on the trails on the 13th, but Emily Collier was. She was out there with Mata and Herrera. Law enforcement looked for a backpack. They made multiple public statements, but nothing ever came of it. Jackson Pierce Files, Osbrook. It's called the Jackson Pierce Files. He has a YouTube channel, and he did a series. He did a series of 12 episodes on the Delphi case, and he went over all of these photos. These photos are screenshots from the Jackson Pierce Files. This is what the channel looks like. This is the thumbnail of the series that he did on Delphi. And a lot of people had sent information about this channel. I've looked at it extensively. Quester looked at it, and we really just couldn't make heads or tails of it. We knew that he was pointing out nefarious things in these photographs, and the timing of it all seemed peculiar, but we could never make anything, out of it until that Instagram photo that you found while I was on vacation. I was like, you know what? Let me just look, because I know that there was a lot of trail photos that Jackson was trying to highlight in these videos. And lo and behold, I went back through and I found that photograph that was cropped in his video. And I do believe these two photos were taken by the same person around the same time. And the next hunt that I'm on is the second photo. That's what I've been told. Michael, that is what I've been told numerous times, but I've personally never been able to pinpoint. These photographs that this Jackson Pierce has have never provided a timestamp or a date. So I was never able to 100% accurately say that they were out there. Yes, there are shadows of at least two people out there on that bridge. And there's more than that if you go and you look at these videos. Now, actually, you know what? Somebody just emailed me. Hold on. somebody reportedly just emailed me all 41 pictures that were taken out there that day. And there is a connection. So Krista Burris is friends with Emily Collier. Krista Burris, if you go to, I don't believe that her Facebook pages are active anymore, but if you go to Krista Burris's Facebook page, now these girls, I do believe, are all a part of the LGBT community. Krista on Facebook goes by CJ Burris, and Emily Collier goes by Emmett Collier. Krista Burris's mother is Carmelina Conklin. That's her maiden name. She was married at this time to a man named Joe Burris. I don't know. I'm assuming that would be Krista's father. But here's the weird thing. Carmelina Conklin, aka Carmelina Burris, her husband, Joe, it seems quite apparent that he was one of Derek German's fall guys when Derek German took a plea. There's several things that indicate that. Then I'm still trying to put the pieces together, but Keegan Klein's girlfriend at the time, I believe that he was arrested. I don't quote me on this. Her last name is Conklin. So anyway, Emily Collier was supposed to be out on the trails with Mata and Herrera. Now, if you have factual information that Krista Burris was out there on the 13th, and if you go through these photos, you will see that, oh my goodness, hold on. They were out there for a long period of time that day. Okay, hang on. I'm going to pull up these photos, guys. All right, guys, hang on. Let me share my screen. I've never seen all 41 of these before, so we're going to look at them together. Thank you, Deanna, for sending these. Hold on a minute. Of course, I got to let it respond. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, nice and clear.
Okay. All right, here's photograph number 1. I can get on board with it being in the morning.
Well, hold on a moment. That's a picture looking which way? Looking south, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the sun is rising in the south that day, was it?
Yes. I would have to check, but I would imagine so. Well, doesn't the sun
It's
set
unusual for the
northwest?
sun to do that, isn't it? Normally it
Doesn't
doesn't
it set
rise
in the
in the
east?
south.
Well, there's that photo. That looks like it's a photograph off of the platform.
Yeah, that first photo you showed, I would say it's in the evening, not the morning, and that the sun was setting, not rising, because that's to the southeast, isn't it? Southwest, sorry. So the sun would be setting in the west, not rising.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the sun rises from the east.
Yeah.
That would be Krista's mother, Carmelina Conklin, or Carmelina Burris, who was married to Joe Burris. Now I'm trying to decide what side of the creek they're on here. Anybody want to take a guess?
Well, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I think that's Ron Logan's side. The reason I
It
think
seems
that is because the ground's rising at the angle that Ron's does by the creek.
so. They would have had to have taken the path at the north end of the bridge, right there where if somebody was traveling from the cemetery to the north end of the bridge and they would have popped out right there, that's where they would have had to have entered the woods on that side versus crossing the creek. That's interesting, the pink cord. There's one at the bottom of the photograph and there's one right above the middle. Now, let's look. So look behind them. There's quite a few people back there. And I just want to reiterate again, look at where that barrier is, how far back that barrier is from the bridge. And they want, and again, Baldwin in his interview sided with law enforcement that the people that, well, first of all, they were wrong in the account. They were indicating that the photo of Abby on the bridge at 207, what you see behind her is the barrier. That's not what I think a lot of us have focused on. We have focused on a screenshot taken from the BG video at 213 and seeing people in the foreground at the north end of the bridge. Look at this trail. This is a gravel trail from the barrier to the north. Look at the distance. That is not the barrier that you see. And who is this guy? Well, in these 41 photographs, I don't see the second image that Osbrook found in the data. So that's not there. But I do agree with you, Quester, that this is from Ron Logan's side of the creek. And it looks like right here, middle of the picture, is possibly that deep ravine, which would be a very close proximity to the crime scene.
That would be the runoff that
Yes.
we were told about a little while back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the video of somebody walking that. And it was right there next to it where a cell phone was found, in between the ravine and the crime scene. Let me see. Now, so it's interesting. Now I know I want to say it's this photo right here. I have this photo saved. I'll have to dig it out. But I am almost positive it's this photo, but it has a timestamp on it at the very top of 143. And I had accidentally included it in the photos that Cheyenne took, but it wasn't a photograph that Cheyenne took. It was Carmelina Conklin who took it, but the photo that I have has a timestamp of 143 on it.
Yes, it is that picture. Yeah.
Oh. Let me see. Let me check chat. I don't know if law enforcement talked to all of these people. I do know that, okay, so Kay Harper reportedly was out there on the trails around 1 o'clock. I have confirmed that with a parent. Now, the discrepancy is believe that we were initially told that she was out there with the letter A, last name Bridge. And A Bridge, I believe, am I right, Quester? She is listed as, she is in Libby's friend list. But the Kay Harper parent who confirmed that Kay Harper was out on the trails that day, they have said that she was there with a girl named Brianna, but they don't know, the parent didn't know Brianna's last name, but they were there around 1 o'clock and that law enforcement did speak to them. But Kay Harper is also friends with Emily Collier and Krista Burris. So it is very bizarre that all of these people are out there and we heard from none of them. Somebody needs to go talk to Emily Collier while she's still in Rockville. All eyes, that would be a question for Osbrook. If Osbrook's still here, where did the 144 timestamp come from, creation or accessed? I believe the 144 timestamp is when IG was accessed. I could be wrong, but then the photo of the water followed. But I know that Emily Collier, I believe, it's Brianna, Brianna. And Emily Collier is going to be released, I believe, in December. Yes, Luthi, that's correct. We didn't hear anything about him either, but once he was arrested, everybody who was out there, the defense should have seen to it that they were all utilized as far as comparing the state's timeline, because Rick would have had to have turned into the invisible man to make it all the way through the trails and not have been seen but by only Rayleigh Voorhees and them, because their timelines are so fishy as well. You said flash those side by sides. Hold on.
The timelines also say that it was impossible for Betsy Blair and the Rayleigh group not to have seen each other.
Well, Betsy Blair didn't see anybody.
That's what she says.
She didn't see anybody but the young bridge guy on the first platform. But yet we know all of those people were out there. 1 o'clock, you've got Kay Harper, you've got whoever she was with, we've got the Tipton, the new unknown witness who's seen the 4 girls out there by Freedom or under Freedom Bridge or the railroad bridge playing in the road. We don't know where they came from. We don't know where they went, if they were coming or they were going. But all of these people, and to be honest, to me, a lot of them they're insignificant other than being able to confirm times, like getting their phones and downloading their phones. We would have had a much more clearer timeline. And the timeline of Daniel Pearson and Shelby Hicks, Shelby Duncan, Cheyenne, David McCain, that group right there it is a deep, dark web of bullshit. And when you listen to Shelby Hicks's testimony, her and Daniel Pearson did not drive to the trails together. She slipped up. She made it out at the beginning of her testimony like they arrived together. They walked through the Mears Trail up to the trailhead, turned right, walked towards Freedom Bridge, then turned around about halfway and went back to Monon High Bridge. Then by the end of her testimony, she's talking about they left the trails, they went to Amish country, they went to Camden, and they drove around, and then he dropped her back off at her car. So we know that there's two vehicles there between Shelby driving her 2004 Impala and supposedly Daniel Pearson, who had a white pickup truck. She testified that when they got there, they parked parallel to the road. Well, they didn't arrive together. Why would she testify to such an inaccuracy unless she had been prepped? And then another thing that we're going to talk about too is Skylar, Daniel's fiance, who, what did she drive, Quester?
I'll check for you.
Wasn't it a white car? No, Candy. Love. If the appeal is denied, no, absolutely not. The evidence cannot be legally destroyed. There is still a post-conviction to go through, and there are statutes and legislation that especially forensic and biological evidence that cannot be destroyed.
Skylar had a white Honda Accord at the time.
Mm-hmm. And we have Michelle Weiss, who testified, or not, she didn't testify, but she was a witness early on in the case, that she's seen a white vehicle with paper plates out by the road. So now we have Shelby Hicks, who was driving an Impala that was supposedly new. So it's possible that it had paper plates, but we also have, when you put this all together, there are so many unanswered questions. We have the clump of hair that was found by the barrier at the north end of the bridge. How do you get a clump of hair out there? You've got Michael Hoffman reporting that there was an argument at the Mears lot. Yeah, Shabugs, it could be. That's what I'm saying. All of these people are important, and it all should have been pinned down. Okay, Tom. So going forward, we're going to continue to work on all of this, just like we've been working on all of the other things. And I'm sure everybody else in the community will be too. Yeah, all eyes. Whoopsie. That is exactly what happened in the Stephen Avery case. The prosecutor in that case actually wrote the legislation to preserve the evidence, and then turned around and destroyed evidence in the Stephen Avery case. Yeah, a fight. Did Skylar show up there to confront her fiance for being there with, all of these little rumors that trickled out a couple arguing under the bridge. And then later it's changed to they weren't under the bridge, but there's a couple out on the bridge. Let me check it. Did you just send that, Deanna? Let me see here. Jennifer, do you have any contacts with that email? Okay, hang on. Hang on, guys. I think, how many of these are there? Okay, hold on. Okay, I don't know. Is this a different group of photos? Because they look like they're the same. Let me close some of these down here. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to see because I've got like 4 emails that just popped in. I'm trying to see which is which. Deanna, can you tell me, did you just send that, or, because if you just sent it, I haven't gotten it yet. Did you just send it, or was it the very first one that you sent? I'll have to, what I'm going to do is I'll go through them because, okay, Big JD. Okay, I'll do that. Can you, in the chat, can you tell us what we're looking at? Because I seen them. I just didn't know what they were referencing. Hold on. So I was just sent a slew of pictures. So we know that the 2 on the right-hand side are supposed to be, that's Anthony, the real Anthony shots is Jennifer, where are you? So there's this one. There's this one. He looks like the, yeah, they all resemble. Yeah, radar, we should. So JD says, I'm not suggesting anymore. I know I've gotten your I've gotten your emails. There's we have to we need more than just photographs. And all of these people that are connected there, right there in Delphi, it's always, I mean, everybody just shuts down. Nobody wants to talk. Yes, I will post them in my Facebook group, and I will post some of the information that I've been given about a couple of these people that are in these. I don't want to say it out loud. Hey, Indy Cindy. Correct. So Michael wants to clean up the idea that that CAD reports have phone geolocation data as suggested by certain people. So I do think I put something like that in here about what a CAD report does not include. I think I put it in here.
You did. It doesn't. The CAD report won't give that.
Yes, it's not a forensic report.
No.
It does not give geolocation. That is why I stated we would need the AT&T portal report for that. Now, that doesn't mean that the GPS information that came with the pings wasn't provided to dispatch. It just wasn't entered into dispatch. But the CAD report itself does not give you doesn't give you the GPS. So let me go through this little thingy here.
If I remember rightly, the only thing it gave was the geolocation of the Wells Street Tower, didn't it?
Correct. And that in itself still comes from the carrier, not the CAD report. It says CAD entries are meant to be operational notes, not forensic storage. So the accuracy radius, tower ID, sector ID, and method are often off unless the dispatcher decides to type them in. Why a CAD rarely contains the full technical ping data. The CAD is not a forensic data system. It's an active incident log. Most dispatchers just enter the coordinates and tower name because that's all that the search teams immediately need. The full ping record with uncertainty meters, tower sector, etc., is usually kept in the carrier's ping return PDF or portal record. And then it's transferred into the investigator's case file. I don't know why I cut this one side off here. I don't know how I did that. What was omitted here in the CAD, because we don't have GPS locations in the CAD, it's probably not maliciously removed. It just wasn't typed into the CAD in the first place. The original ping return document from AT&T would contain the longitude and latitude, the accuracy in meters, the time and date, and the method used, cell site, GPS, and hybrid. So that would come from the carrier, not the CAD. And that is why, again, we know that Libby's phone's GPS, what her location was on her phone, because there is GPS from her phone traveling from the Patties to the Mears Trail. We have no indication that her phone was ever entered into airplane mode. So when law enforcement asked AT&T to begin pinging the phone, and you then have law enforcement publicly stating the phone is pinging all over town, just like the Ron Logan search warrant, they were able to depict within yards or meters a proximity location of where Ron Logan's phone was. That information came directly out of the mouth of law enforcement. The phone is pinging all over town, and I would bet money that AT&T was providing them proximity locations, and that phone was moving. Doesn't mean the girls were moving. It means the phone was moving. The phone could have been with the girls, but the girls may not have been with the phone. We just don't know. But then you've got the dogs being called off. Then you've got the search being called off. So how do we, I mean, what is the conclusion that we have? That they weren't taking these two missing girls as being in intimate danger. Well, we know the phone wasn't in airplane mode while it was in the woods. We know that it wasn't in airplane mode when the phone was pinging, because we have all the lists of the pings right here. And we know that the phone was receiving phone calls. We know that it was receiving voicemail messages. So we know the phone wasn't in airplane mode out there. It's just too damn bad that when they collected it at the crime scene, no one can tell us when it was actually put into airplane mode, or if it ever was, when it was taken in to be forensically examined. Well, they also said that the on and off of the phone, the very last time the phone was, they said that was all gone too. Yet there are the phone data is very sketchy to me. When you've got the phone that was reset back to factory settings, yet there's information on the phone that precedes prior to that reset. Then you've got things happening on the phone after the phone was collected by law enforcement for weeks or months later, when the phone should have been in airplane mode. It's just there's so many gaps in this phone data, and no one. I mean, I wish the defense would have invested more money in Eldredge to do a little bit more of an examination of all of the data, not just the minuscule amount that she did. And I think that she has more information, like she stated in her interview, but she just wasn't asked when she was on the stand. Yeah, and has have like going through those photos of her phone that Bunner took, do you notice that there is no Snapchat icon on her home screen, and her home screen is not full? That's strange to me. I've raised two teenage daughters, and of course, they're constantly manipulating and organizing their phone and, moving things around to where it's quick and easy to access. And the fact that she didn't have Snapchat like on her home screen when her home screen wasn't full, it's kind of strange to me, but it doesn't really mean anything. Let me see. Okay. Well, I'm going to hop off. We don't have anything else to cover today. This was just kind of an overview or a prelude into the CAD system to the best way I know how to explain it, and because I was familiar with it. But I'm sure as we dig into all of this, some things that aren't clear right now will become more clear. And thank you, Indy Cindy, for being a member for 4 months. There's going to be more things that, we can, after we kind of review the experts' reports and we compare it to this, and still continuing to go through the trial transcripts. So little chunks at a time. Like I said, quality over quantity. We will get there. Yeah, all eyes. And just remember, there's things that were in the data but weren't on the phone, or were on the phone and not in the data. There's issues with that stuff too. But until we have, like we talked about the other day, trying to piecemeal this all together, you're kind of going down a slippery slope, because you think you're looking at one thing, and then when you review it from a different angle, you realize, okay, that was wrong. And it should just never be this way. It should never be this way, especially in a high profile case. Not that it being a high profile case makes it any more of a priority than a not high profile case, but the fact that they are publicly brazen with their nefarious behavior for the world to see. And that's scary, that they have no shame in their game. You know what I mean? To do things so nefariously right in front of our face, and then try to make us believe that, we're the ones who are the conspiracy theorists. Thank you, Indy Cindy. Thank you, Candy, for being a member for 5 months. I wonder why it's not popping up. Mother of Dragons, please email me. Indy Cindy, where do you get that the SIM was not in? I know that they took a picture of the SIM. It's with the phone, but I've never heard that the SIM wasn't in the phone when it was found. That doesn't mean the SIM couldn't have been removed and then placed back in the phone. So guys, we're gonna hop off here. You guys enjoy your Monday, and I will see you Thursday with Skip. And like always, like and subscribe and share, and I will post all of this in the Case by Case Facebook discussion group. If you're not in there, please pop in. Make sure that Kathy will only let you in if you do answer all of the questions. So we will see you there, or we'll see you back here on Thursday. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for being here.